Next, from the City Club of Chicago, Michael Masters, the Executive Director of the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management for Cook County, discusses how the city works to protect citizens from terrorism and natural disasters. This runs about 35 minutes.
Our next speaker is the Cook County Board President. She has served in that position for nearly 4 years. Prior to that, she served as alderman of the 4th Ward and has been a dedicated community leader for over 2 decades. She earned her bachelor's degree and her master's degree at the University of Chicago. Ladies and gentlemen, Cook County Board President Toni Preckwinkle. Madam President.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. One more time. Good afternoon. Much better, much better. You know, I've always believed that it's my responsibility as president of the county not only to do my job as well as I possibly can, but also to provide young people, the next generation of public servants and leaders, with an opportunity to serve as well. So I was pleased to appoint Michael Masters to be in charge of Homeland Security and Emergency Management 3.5 years ago. I knew him, not personally, frankly, but by reputation from his work with the Chicago Police Department. And I was impressed by his service there and encouraged to offer him this position. I'm grateful that he was willing to take it. He's an honors graduate of the University of Michigan and a graduate of the Harvard Law School. He is also, as you may not know, a commissioned officer in the United States Marine Corps. He says he's in active reserve. Is that right? That's correct. In active reserve. He holds the rank of captain. Please welcome Michael Masters.
Thank you. A young man from Florida, born in West Palm Beach, one of 4 siblings. Growing up, he was like most other teenagers, a sports fan. He loved playing basketball and enjoyed watching the Miami Heat. He listened to Jay-Z. His favorite television shows were CSI Vegas and South Park. He posted messages on Facebook and the occasional selfie. He played video games with his friends. Following his love of sports, when he started college, he started studying physical therapy. And then, one day, he just kind of disappeared. That is until this past May, the last weekend of that month, May 25th. That's when Moner Abu Salah, 22 years old from West Palm Beach, Florida, drove a truck laden with 16 tons of explosives into a restaurant in Syria, killing himself along with 37 others. Abu Salah was, as far as we know, the first American to die in a suicide attack in Syria. In a video released by militants shortly after he died, Abu Salah spoke about how fulfilling life was as a warrior, enjoying tea with his fellow mujahideen, particularly compared to the lack of opportunity as well as the disenfranchisement he felt in our own country. He spoke about the paradise he believed he was about to enter. And after all of that, and then for just a moment, we get a glimpse of just that 22-year-old kid from Florida. Fighting back tears, he said goodbye. A simple, "I love you, Mom." And then in the video, a truck rumbling off into the distance, followed by a massive explosion. The issues posed by individuals like Abu Salah are increasingly relevant, complex, and dangerous. An estimated 12,000 foreign fighters have flocked to Syria from over 80 countries, and Abu Salah was one of them. What happens when they want to come back? What happens when they want to come here? The events on May 24th in Brussels, where an individual walked into the Jewish museum there and killed 4 people, demonstrates the potential dangers. The suspect spent much of this past year fighting with jihadists in Syria. Just last week, a plot disrupted in Australia where 15 individuals were detained with alleged ties to ISIS, planning the public beheadings of people on Australian streets, intending to demonstrate the now global reach of their organization and their ideology. A man arrested in upstate New York for allegedly funding and recruiting for ISIS, as well as making statements how he planned to undertake an attack here, in our country, in his country. These cases highlight the nature of the threats that we now face at once, both international and domestic, unimpeded by borders, assisted by technology, and fed by anger, extremism, disenfranchisement, or simply at times just boredom. They highlight the dramatic shifts required by law enforcement in their thought processes, tactics, and strategies. They highlight how we as a society need to address the feelings of disenfranchisement and lack of opportunity that too many young people, whether white, black, brown, rich, poor, urban, or rural, feel. How we must develop a better understanding of the ways and mechanisms in which people come to lose hope, become radicalized, or simply feel marginalized. Those feelings which lead some to a cry of martyrdom and ocean away, others to pick up a gun and walk into a school, or still others simply to join a gang right here in our own backyard. These cases also highlight something else. They highlight how, whether we're at a museum, in a school, or 6,100 miles away from someone's final act of murder, we all have a role to play in keeping our nation safe, our neighborhoods secure, and our families free from harm. From homegrown violent extremists who are affiliated with foreign terrorist organizations to those affiliated with white supremacist movements, from foreign fighters to lone wolves, from cyber attacks and active shooter events to issues like Ebola and natural hazards, the threats facing us are more broad, the connections more global, and the impacts more dangerous than ever before. Ensuring that we're able to address those threats, both man-made and natural, is a significant undertaking. The Cook County Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, under the President's leadership, is working in partnership with our first responders, the private, nonprofit, academic sectors, as well as most critically our community, to ensure that we can meet that challenge and address the threats, and we have made incredible progress. Today, I'd like to share with you the philosophy that has driven our efforts in Cook County and how it has enhanced the safety and security of our urban area, and with that, we hope, each of us. Before I do so, I'd like to take a moment, obviously, to thank the City Club, Jay Doherty in particular, as well as all of you for being here. And naturally, the progress we have made would not be possible without the vision, support, and leadership of one individual, President Preckwinkle. I could not be more fortunate that she asked me to lead this agency in May of 2011. Her mandate of innovative leadership, improved services, fiscal responsibility, transparency, and accountability is something that we as a department strive to implement every day in all that we do. And over the last 40 months, we have made incredible progress in that, creating a best practice agency that is working to protect against, prevent, mitigate the effects of, respond to, and recover from all hazards, whether man-made or natural. And as the second largest county in the entire nation, the threats and challenges we face are unique, but they don't exist singularly on their own. Think about the tools, the technology, the skill sets, and the training required to address some of our most pressing issues. The information processes and procedures required to inform people of a weather-related event are the same ones that were used during the Boston Marathon bombings to inform residents to stay indoors. The operational response of the fire service responding to a collapsed building, whether due to an explosion or a tornado, are the same. As you look across the threat spectrum, you see this time and again. And as we have worked to reform, reorganize, and re-energize our department, we have implemented a whole community, all hazards approach. We are made stronger when we work together. We have sought common sense solutions to complex problems, placing ourselves in a position to not merely respond to events, but to proactively address them. And this starts with planning. And the bedrock of our planning principle is collaboration. Working together, Cook County and the City of Chicago completed the first ever comprehensive, stay with me, Threat Hazard Identification and Risk Assessment, or THIRA, for our urban area. How could we address the hazards that we face together if we weren't sure what they were, nor did we agree on their importance? And building from that THIRA, we then set about addressing key issue areas, and one of our single greatest hazards is related to natural disasters. Now, at this point, people usually stop and they say natural disasters, we live in the Midwest. Our single greatest disaster may be the inability of a certain sports team to win a pennant. But you'd be mistaken to think that, not about the pennant, about the natural disasters. Flooding in the Midwest in 2008 caused 24 deaths and $15 billion in losses due to reduced agriculture yields and the closure of key transportation routes. In 2011, 11 of the 14 U.S. weather-related disasters of damages over $1 billion affected the Midwest. Just last year in our own county, We suffered over $109 million in recoverable damages to individual homeowners. And this is contemplated to get worse. Increased heat wave intensity and frequency, greater humidity, degraded air quality, reduced water quality. Extreme rainfall events and flooding will affect transportation, agriculture, human health, and infrastructure. I'm a real pick-me-up at a cocktail party, by the way. A recent tornado modeling report noted that were a tornado similar to the Moore 2013 EF5 incident to hit Cook County, we could suffer potential damages of greater than $20 billion, and more than 112,000 people would be in the tornado's path. But it's more than just individual impact or economic issues. This is a national security issue. The Quadrennial Defense Review of 2014, the Department of Defense's doctrinal worldview, notes that climate change has the potential to significantly impact our national security, our economic stability, and civil society, affecting how and where we train our troops, deploy them, supply them, and keep them safe. Now, prior to the president's election, the county had received federal funds to develop a multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan to address the hazards we face and make funding available not just to the county, but to our jurisdictions to implement solutions for those hazards. The issue, the previous administration never did anything with those funds. We did. We went to work creating a plan, and in a sign of how far Cook County has come, we partnered with 113 out of the county's 134 jurisdictions to develop that hazard mitigation plans. I am proud to report that as of 2 weeks ago, the county has not only approved that plan, but it is one of the most robust in the nation, and it is certainly definitively the largest. And of course, while these plans are incredibly valuable, it is the partnerships that have been and continue to be built which make a difference. One of the most vital components of partnership is information sharing. In a post-9/11 world, we can't afford to hoard intelligence or silo information, and we are breaking down those silos. We've developed one of the most sophisticated web-based weather monitoring systems available, proactively informing jurisdictions when their water levels in their rivers are rising. Utilizing predictive analytics, we now pre-deploy equipment and water pumps to areas where it is historically flooding, placing our partners in a strategically advantageous position. We deployed in what we believe is a national first, an incident management system platform that is shared between the City of Chicago, Cook County, the State of Illinois, and FEMA Region 5. We have made access to that system available to every jurisdiction in our county. When used effectively, that means that bordering municipalities will know about an incident, whether an active shooter, a chemical spill, or a fire, as it happens. If the incident expands or a request for assistance comes in, people can be prepared, not only willing to assist, but ready to do so, reducing response times and potentially saving lives. Of course, it's not enough to improve situational awareness and information flow between government, however. We need to make sure that our residents, all of us and our families, have access to information. To accomplish this, we've invested in a web-enabled mass notification system that we will be deploying by the second quarter of 2015. It is the use of just such a system in Boston that allowed government to communicate effectively with residents during the aftermath of the terrorist attacks there. Now, when there's a major storm, serious traffic diversion, or a public safety issue, we will not be able to just merely inform people, we'll be able to communicate with them. What happens when we move beyond just information sharing, though? What happens when we need an actual operational response? We have continued our efforts to build a truly operational response capacity within our department, reviewing national and international best practices. This year alone, we have deployed equipment over 187 times, and we are most effective when people don't even realize that we're doing it. With water pumps, light towers, generators, and portable HVAC systems, we've assisted in preventing 911 centers from flooding, hospitals from losing power, and we've kept roads open so that emergency vehicles can get through. Our whole community all-hazard approach has allowed us to make incredible progress across issue areas that matter to all of our stakeholders, particularly our residents. The notion of a whole community approach is dependent on those partnerships. As a county, under the President's leadership, and certainly within our department, we have worked to build and in some cases rebuild those relationships. Many of you who are here today, I would like to thank for your spirit of partnership as we've engaged on this project over the last 40 months. From ComEd and our continual sharing of weather and operational information to the MWRD and our interfacing on water conditions to the other county departments, we are working together more safely and effectively and smartly than ever before. I'd like to particularly recognize my partner at the City of Chicago's Office of Emergency Management and Communications, Executive Director Gary Schenkel. We have gone from that's very appropriate. We have gone from an urban area where the city and the county did not speak to an effective and strong partnership. I am grateful for Gary's leadership and his friendship in making this possible. The progress that we have made writ large would not be possible without willing partners like Gary and others and strong relationships. But we have a lot more to do. We need to strengthen the partnerships between the public and the private sectors as well as with our residents. And one of the areas where we can make the greatest difference in partnership is through training. We have done a lot over the last 3 years making training available to first responders. For the first time, we have used grant funds effectively to build props to train firemen in rescuing people from collapsed buildings, confined spaces, and burning structures. We have trained more individuals each year than the previous, creating one of the largest federally funded, grant-funded training and exercise programs in the nation. As the threats and issues that our first responders face become more and more diverse and specialized, so has our training. But it is not enough that we train first responders alone. I want you to think as a society, what is our most important asset? December 14th, 2012 was a day that started out like any other for 6-year-old Emily Parker. She and her fellow classmates were just beginning their morning in first grade when shortly after 9:30, everything changed for them and the people and families in Newtown, Connecticut. Emily wouldn't be in her church's Christmas pageant the following week. Emily's parents, Robbie and Alyssa, would never again see their little girl smile. Her younger siblings, Madeline and Samantha, would never get to play or fight with their older sister. Emily, 19 of her classmates, her principal, 5 teachers and support staff would not go home that night. Our little girl is 6. She's in the first grade too, and I could not imagine, nor should any parent have to. Our most important asset are our children, our Emilys. And while violence in our schools is not a new phenomenon, the first known school shooting was in 1764. It has gotten worse and it continues to. From 2009 through 2013, we have seen a marked increase in these events across our nation, including a 194% increase in the number of people killed during these events over the previous 8 years. Can we face this threat? I believe we can, because we have before. On December 1st, 1958, a fire broke out in Our Lady of the Angels School right here in Humboldt Park. A total of 92 children and 3 nuns lost their lives that day in an event that would be the lead headline in American, Canadian, and European newspapers. In the aftermath, sweeping changes in school fire safety regulations were enacted worldwide. Some 16,500 school buildings in this country alone were brought up to code within 12 months. Roughly 68% of all communities in this country inaugurated and completed fire safety training after the Our Lady of the Angels fire to include fire drills. We can have that impact again today. Cook County is working in partnership with law enforcement, educators, and others to do exactly that. We are enhancing training between law enforcement and schools, so also that first responders are not only more familiar with the facilities and cultures of the institutions that they will respond to, but so that our teachers can know what to do in the event of an attack, because it is our teachers, people who signed up to educate our children, which in every instance usually are our first responders, and they do a valiant job for one that they never signed up for. We need to give them the tools so that they can do the job that they are faced with. To be truly successful, we need to work together as a whole community. This threat from predominantly young men from middle and upper class communities raised on video games and violent movies is more and more common. But it is not just the lone wolf teenager that we need to worry about. We know that Al-Qaeda and other groups train on school scenarios. They have executed their plans elsewhere. Floor plans for schools in Virginia, New Jersey, and Texas have been recovered from foreign-based terrorists. In just the almost exactly 4 months since Abu Salah undertook his suicide mission, the threats we face have become even more disturbing. For with each passing day, those who wish us harm enhance their training, they advance in their thinking, and they improve in their tactics. Individuals, whether they be lone wolves or part of a group and who are planning mass casualty attacks or hate crimes against a house of worship, are increasingly sophisticated. Their use of the internet, social media, and other technology not only complicates their interdiction, it provides them a forum to shape and foment their views, recruit others, and develop their plans. I am proud to announce that we are developing critical training programs to address these issues. Known as Countering Targeted Violence Against Our Communities, our whole community all-hazard approach is built on increasing coordination and cooperation between law enforcement, academic institutions, the faith-based community, and other stakeholders. This will include resource materials for all partners, training on identifying, reporting, or reacting to an issue, whether man-made or natural, as well as, most critically, enhancing understanding between stakeholders. We know that when we build bridges, whether to prepare for a natural disaster, protect a house of worship, or ensure the safety of our kids in our schools, we are strengthening the very fabric of our society and increasing its overall safety. Through strong training and even stronger partnerships, we can be successful. One area that's particularly critical is ensuring our local officials are prepared to address situations that may impact their communities. Time and again, from elected and appointed officials, from Somerset, New Jersey with Superstorm Sandy, to St. Tammany Parish, New Orleans with Hurricane Katrina, from terrorist attacks and active shooter events, we hear the refrain, "I wish I was better prepared." But how do you prepare people to lead? How do you teach leading through crisis? I am pleased and proud to announce that Cook County, in partnership with the University of Chicago Harris School of Public Policy, will be launching a new half-day intensive crisis management leadership course for local officials in Cook County next month. Through extensive piloting, nationally recognized curriculum developers, and utilizing relevant case studies, the training program will guide each participant through the challenges of effective disaster response. It is exactly this type of forward-leaning and relevant training which strives to meet the President's mandate of improved services and innovative leadership, which is bringing Cook County together and ensuring that we are all better prepared for any type of incident. Ironically, as we have worked hard to increase communication, enhance connectivity, and improve technology, some of the exact tools that make this possible pose formidable challenges. From our country's power grids to our personal phones, we live in an increasingly cyber-based and connected world. And while the internet and technology can bring us closer together, connecting cultures, countries, and people, these same tools can also be used to tear us apart, attacking industry, societies, and individuals. It is a challenge that we as a country are not adequately prepared for. Just consider that in April 2013, the Associated Press Twitter account was attacked by a group of hackers loyal to Syrian President Bashar Assad. They sent out a tweet claiming that the White House had been attacked and the president had been injured. In the 5 minutes that it took to take that tweet down, the Dow Jones plunged 100 points and the S&P lost $136.5 billion. The events of this last year, with a move from attacks against state actors and towards private ones, whether Target, Home Depot, or others, shows the shifting terrains of this new war. Recent reports indicate that more hackers, when they target government, are looking to smaller entities, local government. Some have speculated these are mistakes by foreign attackers or hackers, but I reach a different conclusion. I think they are looking for our most useful and valuable data, from arrest records to tax information. There are no clearly delineated borders or boundaries in cyberspace. Think of yourself. The average American has 25 online aliases, from your Twitter account to your Uber account, from your Facebook to your credit cards. When we talk about the Internet of Things, your presence in that space is a dynamic, visible, and increasingly vulnerable one. Every second, 12 people fall victim to a cybercrime. That's over 1 million people a day, 378 million people a year. 41% of online adults have been the victim of a cyber attack, including 38% of mobile device users. Over 552 million identities were breached in 2013 alone. And making this more complicated, these issues are increasingly difficult to detect. The median number of days attackers were present on a network before they were interdicted was 229. The threat may be the most critical one that we face, and it's getting worse. Consider that groups like ISIS are increasingly technologically savvy. As their use of social media increases, already far too sophisticated, you can be certain that their utilization of cyberspace for attacks will as well. In Cook County, we are addressing these threats head on. Under the leadership of the President, Mayor Emanuel, the City of Chicago and Cook County have partnered to create cybersecurity training programs for our workforces. This will better allow those of us at the local level to ensure that the essential services we provide remain uninterrupted. We are also working to mitigate the occurrence of cyber incidents and mitigate the risks associated with those incidents by addressing systemic issues and limiting potential opportunities for people to get into our systems. We are making one of the largest investments in cybersecurity to include both hardware and software of any local government in the nation, over $10 million through 3 years. Through these vital investments, hardware, software, and training, we are making Cook County more secure, and with it, you and your data. In a quote that's often attributed to George Orwell, it is said that we sleep soundly in our beds at night because rough men stand ready on the walls to visit violence against those who wish us harm. Our first responders are standing ready. You've heard me speak about our efforts. This would not be possible without the men and women in our department who are always standing ready. And while I'm honored to speak to you today, as I often say, the work is theirs, and I would like to take a moment to recognize all of them. Stand up. You didn't hear me say that the first time. There you go. We're back there. I'd also like to recognize the people that help me sleep peacefully at night. I'd like to thank my family, as well as particularly my amazing wife and a wonderful mother, Pamela. Thank you so much. As the world around us becomes more complex, those individuals who wish us harm are not necessarily only outside of our walls. Sometimes they're already within them. Other threats, like Ebola and cyber, completely transcend the walls. Because of this, it means we must be more prepared, more ready, not separately as government and the public sector, or the private sector, or the community, but all together as that whole community. Cook County, under the President's leadership, is working to ensure exactly that. While the threats are more real and diverse than ever, working together, we will not only address the issues in front of us, we will overcome them. In the process, we will make our communities, our county, and our nation more safe and more secure. We look forward to working to meet that challenge, so let us continue together. Thank you.
Great. Miles, I was going to get him some water. I guess I missed that, huh? What a wonderful presentation. I think we're going to go into some questions. We have a few. So one of the questions, let me go with one of the ones that we had tweeted in, actually. Steve Schlick says, Mike, you mentioned Cook County partnerships. What about partnerships in surrounding counties and those in neighboring states?
Great question. And our colleague, James Joseph from DuPage, is here, someone that we work with all the time. We have worked very diligently to build up partnerships across the board. And one of the ways that we do that, we have a regional catastrophic program that we've worked on, which includes not only most of the counties in this state, but involves counties across 3 different states. It falls right into that idea of whether a disaster happens here or in suburban Cook County or external, it will take all of us to respond to, and we've worked diligently to build those partnerships up and those friendships, frankly, which we're very grateful for.
Speaking of friendships, it's very clear that Cook County has it all together. I'm biased, but we do. We have a question from Sam Puglia. Are you here? Village of Westchester. He says, thank you for your recent assistance during the flood. What are, if any, plans to expand equipment sites for pickup?
I suppose the perfect answer that I would give to Sam would be write one in Westchester. But we have taken an approach where in our planning mechanisms, we've looked at the county very similar to our partners at the Department of Transportation and Highways and others to divide the county into 3 zones, essentially. And then we work to strategically pre-deploy equipment to those 3 areas and have facilities to match that. So, Sam, we will have you covered, and we are very grateful for your partnership.
To the extent that you can talk about water safety, what are some of our plans going forward with respect to water safety, seeing as how we do have that big pool of water to the east?
That is something that Executive Director Schenkel and I have spent a lot of time on, as well as with our various partners with the Departments of Environment on both sides, as well as others, whether the MWRD or the Department of Water Management with the city. It is definitely a very large concern. We have recently started to look at how do we ensure continuity of services in the county with respect to water and fresh water. When you think about the number of facilities that need that, just one hospital alone or a nursing home, and you see what has happened at various points, particularly on the East Coast, when they lose water for a period of time, the solutions of trucking in large amounts of bottled water is not truly a viable one for a major incident. So we've worked to look at the security and safety of our systems, as well as the redundancy within our systems, and then how to get fresh water quickly and effectively.
Last week, we had Ellen Alberding of the Joyce Foundation here, and one of the things that she talked about is the fact that some of you all who may have some gray hair in the room, me not included, you guys missed that? That some of us may not be as savvy from a social media perspective, cyber perspective. She did say that they look to some of the younger generation to glean help. What are you guys doing in Cook County? Are you looking to particular schools, particular universities, with respect to some of those very intelligent people as far as help for what you're doing?
So my 6-year-old asked me a couple weeks ago, our 6-year-old asked me, Michael, when did you get your first iPad? Because she plays on an iPad and she has for the last 3 years. And it was a little embarrassing to say, well, I basically got mine when you got yours. So it's all about contextual frame of reference, probably. We have looked to partnerships across the academic community, as well as with the private sector and the public sector and the nonprofit sector. There is immense talent out in the world on these issues. And the reality is that I mention ISIS for a particular reason. Their recruitment strategies are increasingly sophisticated. Their use of social media and Twitter and things like that, Instagram, are increasingly being used for them. And if we do not think of creative ways to counter that message, as well as use those social media tools for our own purposes prior to a disaster, we are certainly going to be behind the ball, so to speak, during a disaster. So we've worked through partnerships with a variety of entities, but we've got a long way to go in utilizing those tools effectively. We have a much more difficult job. Our job is to keep people safe 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And when I say we, I mean all of us, because it is truly a whole community approach. The bad guys only need to have to be successful once. So that requires a level of vigilance on all of us of being adept and savvy in these tools, whether it's protecting your own Twitter account from getting hacked, or it's the Associated Press protecting theirs. So we have, I think, a large learning curve, but we're recognizing the issue and we're moving forward to address it.
Am I missing any questions? Last week, I know I was a little hasty. Okay, I'm going to, at this point, thank Mike for managing to keep all of us calm while his group does what he does and makes it look so simple. Let's give him another hand.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.